Alright students, for this first video we're just going to have a look at the NetBeans IDE quickly, just the basic stuff that we need in order to create a new application, and then from there on we will quickly have a look at two ways of how we can ask the user for input as well as returning some output to the user. So just a quick introduction to NetBeans. At the top you've got the file menu where we can create a new project or a new file. You can also open a project that you're currently working on. So these three are basically the same buttons that we can get there as well. So you can use any of those. Next to it, we've got the save button, we've got undo and some redo buttons, and then we've got some build buttons. So this one will clean and build your project, and this little play button will actually run your project. So if you want to go and see where your specific project is located on the drive, you can also click on your project, right click, and say properties, which will then take you to this screen where you can get the project folder's location. So I can see it's basically in my documents, NetBeans, an example. So I could go and open up my documents, go into NetBeans projects, and then I'll see my example project there. If you go into it, you'll see a whole folder structure there. Now, you can go back to NetBeans, and when you click on this button, clean and build, for the first time, you'll see it creates a dist folder there, a distribution folder. So inside of this folder, you'll get an executable jar file, which is basically the executable file for your application that you're currently working with. So you can take this file and go and run it on any computer that's got Java installed, which most of the time is all the computers that you can get out there. If the computer is not running your application, you can go to Google and just download the Java Runtime Environment, or the JRE. So you can just go and search for it on Google and then get the newest version, install it first, and then your application will be able to run. Unfortunately, when we're using the console output, that won't run anything. So we need to use JOptionPane or use graphical user interface for that one to work. Okay, so how do we create a new project in NetBeans? So you're going to click on the plus there, and then we're going to choose Java application, and then give your application a name. So I'm just going to call this one input output. So that's my application name. You can see also that it is clicked there that says create the main class. So remember that we need a main class for every of our applications. That's the starting point of every application. So if you're creating a new Java application, you should click that one so that we've got a main menu, or not a main menu, a main method that we can work with. So it already starts out with a blank clean slate for a Java file, and you can see that the name of the Java file, input-output.java, is also the same as your class name. If it differs from your class name, it's going to give you an error there and it will not compile. So make sure that you've got the spelling correct. I'm just going to quickly delete some of this comments here, so that we can start everything neat and clear. Also like to use my brackets there. Okay, so there we've got a clean project. So how does it work in Java? Right at the top, we've got a package. If the package line is not there, it won't compile. So the package is basically just indicating your specific application that you're working with inside of the package. Then inside of the package, we've got the input-output file, and this is the class that we declare now. So we're going to say it's a public class. So this is a class declaration. Public access specifier, could be public, could be protected, could be as well as private. So you can use any one of those access specifiers. The class is just the starting of a class definition, and the name of the class is the one that you choose. So that's the programmer's choice for the class name. And then every application should have a starting point. Not every Java file, but every application should have this main method where everything starts. So we're going to go into this main method now, and we're quickly going to have a look at the two different ways of how we can get input from the user and then give him some output. So the first one that I'm going to look at, I'm just going to comment it here, is going to be the scanner class for input from the keyboard. Okay, so basically, in order for us to use the scanner class, if you say scanner, let's just call the object keyboard equals new scanner. In brackets, what we would do is put in system.in, which means that we are going to read input using the scanner class directly from system.in, which means the keyboard. So you'll see that it underlines there, it cannot find this class, so we need to import the class. All of your imports should be directly after the package, but just before your class declaration. So we're going to say import java.util.scanner. You will see as soon as you add the import statement, that error is now gone. So we're basically just saying we're going to use the scanner class. The variable that we use there is keyboard in order to read input from the keyboard. So now how can we use the scanner class? So we could go and ask the user. So if we just want to do a simple console print out, we will just say system.out.println, and now we can type something to the user on the console. So if we say system.out.println, it accepts a string in brackets, and that will basically be displayed to the user. So we're just going to say something like, please enter a number. And so maybe instead of saying please enter a number, let's say please enter your name. So we ask the guy to please enter his name, and because we've got a print line there, it means it's going to go to the next line after it's printed out this. So now we can use the scanner class in order to get the name of the guy. So we're going to say string name equals, referencing that keyboard object that we've got there. So it's the scanner object, and we're going to call one of the methods. So if you start typing next, you'll see that there's a next line, there's a next big decimal, next boolean, next byte, next double, float, int, long, or any one of those. So the next line one is the one that retrieves string from whatever the guy types. And all of the rest are the primitive data types. So we can go and say keyboard.nextLine, which will retrieve whatever that guy typed. And now we save whatever that guy typed by calling the next line method. It saves it into the name variable. So we could do now the same thing again if you want to ask something else. Let's say system.out.println again. And we're going to ask, please, that should be a semicolon, please enter a number. Again, it's going to go to the new line, and we're going to say string number equals, now again we reference the keyboard object, the scanner object there, keyboard dot next. In this case, let's say it's an integer number, so we're going to say we're going to use next int there. So that one will retrieve then the value as an integer. Okay, we declared it as a string there. It should be declared as an integer. So integer number equals keyboard.nextInt. The nextInt method only returns an integer, so on this side it must catch the integer. So then whatever the guy types as the number will be saved into number. So now we can do some calculations or just print out something to the user again. Let's just do a quick calculation there. We can say number squared equals, and then we can use the math.pow method in order to square something. And the math.pow method receives two things in brackets. So the first thing we will indicate is the number. So we're going to have a number to the power of 2. So the second argument, the 2. So it will be number. The math.pow method works the first argument, the number, to the power of 2. So the first one to the power of the second one. So now we're squaring that value, and now we can print out to the user again, system.out.println. And we can say something like, let's place the guy's name first. So we've got going to work with that variable there that we created there, name, plus maybe put a comma there and a space, and we can say your number squared, and then display him his number squared, which will be that. Now maybe something else that you can also do is to just start typing at the beginning of the variable and then hold down Control and then click on spacebar, and it will put the rest of the variable there. If you've got two variables that starts with an SQ, it's going to give you a choice between the two. Okay, so we're just printing out the guy's name, a comma, a space, your number squared, a space, and then show that number squared. So let's quickly run this and see how it runs. So at the bottom you can see there it asks, please enter your name. I'm going to enter my name. Please enter a number. I'm going to say 3. and the number squared is 3 times 3, which will be a 9.0. Okay, so this is basically the first way, or one of the ways, how we can get input from the user by using the scanner class, putting in system.in in brackets, and then using one of the next methods in order to get input. To output to the screen, we use the system.out_print line, or just the print, to add some data to the screen. So the second way in which we can get user input as well as give some output is the JOptionPane class. So I'm just going to say JOptionPane examples. So before we can use the JOptionPane, we need an import statement again. So we're going to say import Java. In this case, it's not just normal Java. It's going to be Java x.swing.star, which will basically just import everything. So at the util also, we could have just put a star there, which would have worked as well. Okay, so it's up to you. It's better to actually go to the specific one. So we can go and search for the JOptionPane there specifically, but the dot star will work just fine. Okay, so we've got the JOptionPane there, and now we can start using it. So we're going to say, basically do the same thing again. So just for my example, I'm going to comment this part out so that we don't get that output again. And now we can work. So a multi-line comment starts with the /* and ends with a */. Okay, so let's start with the JOptionPane example. So it's the same thing again. We're going to ask for the guy's name. So we're going to say or string name equals JOptionPane dot, and there's now two methods that we're going to look at this year, and that's a show input dialog and the show message dialog. So the show input dialog, one we're going to have a look at now, show input dialog. This one accepts in brackets basically what you want to ask the guy. So we're going to ask, please enter your name. Okay, so what this method then does, it pops up, so we can run it quickly. You can see it pops up. Ask the user, please enter your name. And now when the user types his name and clicks on OK, it's going to save whatever the guy typed into name variable. If he clicks on cancel, it's going to save a null value into the name. So that's basically what it does. So the JOptionPane.show input dialog is the one that gives a message as well as ask the user for some input. So let's just carry on. We just need to close this application quickly. Okay, it is closed. So let's carry on with the rest of the program. So we can actually test here just a simple if statement. If the name is equal to null, we know that that guy clicked on the cancel button. So another way of using the JOptionPane is just to show something to the user. So we're going to say JOptionPane.show message dialog. Now the message dialog is a bit different. The first argument will be where you want that message dialog to show up, in the middle of the screen or over a specific component or whatever. So when we get to the graphical user interface later on throughout the year, we will be able to place this show message dialog or this dialog over a specific component. But for now, we're just going to add null there, which means it's going to be in the middle of the screen. The second argument is the text that you want to have displayed. So we can just say something like, you did not enter your name. Okay, so let's quickly test that. If I run it now, you'll see it pops up this. If I click on cancel, it says you did not enter your name. So what happened when we clicked on cancel? We saved the value null there, and we tested if it's null, we print this out. So that's why it printed it out. The else part there, just put that bracket there. So for the else part, we're going to say JOptionPane.show message dialog. First argument again null. Second argument, we can say your name is, and then show the guy's name. So that will be the name that the guy typed. So if it's not null, we can just show the guy's name. So if we run it again, pops up. If I type the name Johan, clicks on OK. Now the name Johan is saved into the name variable it's not equal to null, so it goes to the else and it prints out your name is Johan. So can you see the difference between the two? If I run it again, you can see this is a normal input dialog, show input dialog, where it asks the user for something. If we click cancel or enter the name, it pops up the message dialog. It doesn't give the user a chance to enter anything, but he can just read a message and then click on OK. So this is another way of getting some input from the user and giving some output to the user as well. Let's just do a simple example here as well. Let's say we ask the guy string, let's say str number. Yeah, let's say we ask the guy for a number. String number equals JOptionPane dot show input dialog. Ask the guy for something. So we're going to ask him, please enter a number. So he's going to type the number now. And then when he types the number, it's going to save that number as a string, because this show input dialog method only returns strings. So if I want to work with something else, I need to convert that number. So let's say I want to work with a double. So let's say double number equals. Now, in order to convert from a string to a double, you use the double class. So it's going to be double.parseDouble. And then in brackets, the string that you want to convert. In this case, we want to convert that string that the guy typed to a double and save it into our double variable. The same could be done for an integer. So we could say int number equals, so it's going to be integer.parseInt, and then passing in that value. So depending on which data type you need to convert to will depend on what parse method you use and which class you use. So in this case, it's integer.parseInt, double.parseDouble. It could be long.parseLong, float.parseFloat, and so forth. So you can use different variables there. And remember also, in order to do any conversion from a string to a primitive data type, this is how you do it. So even when we worked in this example, we could have made a conversion there, asking the guy for a number, reading it as a string, and then converting it to a double or to an integer or whatever value we need. So this is basically wrapping it up for two different ways of how we can get input from a user, as well as how we can show the user some output to the screen.